Hey superstars, welcome to the Get Rich Without Being a Bitch podcast, and I am your host Vanessa for this journey. We're going to be challenging some stereotypes, shattering glass ceilings, really looking at what it takes to live richly and to design a business that's going to support the life that you really want to be living. I'm going to be sharing lots of tips, tools, and strategies along the way, and I can't wait for you to join me on this journey. Hey superstars, welcome back to another episode of Get Rich Without Being a Bitch. Always another juicy topic, right? There's so much that can be said about taking you and your business to the next level. A few years ago, I heard this expression and it really got me thinking, like, this is really helpful. And it was all about choosing your version of hard, choosing hard, because we're going to get hard whichever way we look at things, but it's about, do we avoid the hard things now and they're going to come and bite us later and we're going for the easy things? Or are we going to just dive straight in and dig into hard now so that we get easy later? And I remember hearing that thinking, oh, this is really resonating. I could see where, there were places where I was going for possibly some instant gratification, going for those easier things, the things that felt easier, avoiding the hard. But here's the thing, when we do that, all we're doing is delaying. So let's think about this. How does this really, really play out? It can be hard, for example, to go to the gym. I am not somebody that really loves going to the gym. I feel intimidated by some of the machines, especially when I see other people that are very proficient there, right? And I'm like, I don't know exactly what to do, right? It can be hard walking through the door of a new place, and especially when we don't know, what our program is. But it's even harder if we don't. And then all of a sudden we are dealing with health challenges. We're, packing on the pounds. And because we avoided that hard thing in the first place, we've now got to do something even harder further down the path, which, by the way, typically involves the very thing that we were avoiding in the first place. That's the irony. Plus all of the other things, right, that have stacked on top. So in this case, it could be the weight gain, health challenges, blood pressure up, a lot of bad eating habits, right, that have all stacked up. So the hard just becomes harder. Whereas if we reverse that and we go, let me do the hard thing now, there becomes a time where it becomes easier. Now, I certainly know that with my game of tennis. That's one of the places I remember when I first started playing tennis. It was hard to get out on the court. It felt hard to keep messing up. It felt hard to try and play doubles with other people that were way better than me when I was the one missing everything, looking like a clown, slamming them into the net. I don't know, whatever I was doing. I'm glad it was never captured on video back then, frankly. Okay. But then there came a time when it just got easier and easier, right? It was hard at first. Frankly, if I think about tennis now, it's not that the matches themselves aren't hard at times, but getting on the court is so easy. It's just a habit. I never have to think about it. I went through all of that in the early days. It's easy now, right? I'm playing harder matches, but it's a lot easier to approach them because, again, I've been putting in the time. Think about those places where we avoid things in business. So I love to look at this through the lens of money. That's probably because there were a lot of places that were really hard for me around money. And I wanted to avoid them. And I wanted to put my head in the sand, like the ostrich effect. And I'm sure many of you can resonate. I found it really hard to look at the numbers in my business. It was hard because it brought up this emotional response. I then had a lot of shame around it. I thought I should be further ahead. In previous episodes, I've shared that backstory of my accountant telling me that I was going to have to file for bankruptcy if I didn't turn things around. Looking at the numbers in my business was so hard. I didn't know what I was looking for. I had a lot of strong emotional reactions to doing it. I frankly felt like a 3-year-old or a 5-year-old. But equally so, I knew full well that if I didn't take that hard step, it was never going to get easier. The hard would have been filing for bankruptcy. I never had to do that, but that is where I was headed, right? The hard would have been looking in my kids' eyes and telling them that, I've promised you all of these things because I'm running my own business and our lifestyle is expanding. The hard would have been telling them, I'm sorry, like I couldn't do it and I couldn't do it for you. That would have been far harder. So think about in business, right? There's looking at the numbers. Yes, it's hard, but it will get harder. It's incredible how this works. But if we don't start to do those hard things, it is guaranteed they actually get harder. Think about the amount of times you've put off a conversation and it gets harder. So let's think about money again. Perhaps it's having a conversation with somebody that's behind on payments, right? It's not my favorite thing to do in the business. I'm sure it's not your favorite thing to do either. But again, the more we let that slip, the harder that conversation becomes. And it becomes harder because typically when we haven't had that conversation, people get further and further behind on their payments because we're allowing that to happen. We're kind of showing through our silence that that's okay. Like we have stories of women that have not just $5,000 that they need to collect, but close to $500,000 that they need to collect because they haven't had the hard conversations. That's a lot of money. That is life-changing money. But again, the emphasis has gone on to easy now. And when it gets to $500,000, and trying to really dig our way out of that, I can promise you that is way harder than had that conversation happened when it was 5,000. Conversations with team members, again, probably not your favorite thing to do. If I have to have a hard conversation with a team member that's done something wrong, out of alignment with our values, frankly, even a firing conversation. Yes, it feels hard, right? These are not my favorite things to do. And yeah, I have delayed on those things as well. And I've opted for easy. And guess what? It never got easier. It always got harder. And to the point where, yes, I've made those mistakes. I had somebody that I knew full well I needed to have that hard conversation with, and I avoided it. And it cost me tens of thousands of dollars in lost revenue because of it, right? So what are you choosing? Like hard now, easy later, easier later at least, or are you choosing easy now and really setting yourself up for a lot harder later? I think we can look at everything in our business and life through that. And I am keep training myself now the whole time. When I find myself wanting to delay, getting a little loosey-goosey with things, right? It's like, okay, no, what's the hard thing? What's the hard thing I've got to do? Big tip for those hard things is there's two areas here. I love to move my body every single day. I just believe in cleaning out that energy, moving my body, sweating, getting my heart rate up. For me, it really calms my mind. It clears out my mind. It kind of gets the stressy, perhaps self-talk, negative self-talk out of the way. I find my creativity comes up through that place as well, but my energy comes up as well. So I start the day always with moving my body. And again, typically, it's going to be either a power walk, a pretty long one. I typically do, an hour or so. And again, great pace, tennis. And I'm also exploring, new things that I want to take up. I'll tell you about those later. But, I've got some new projects for this year that I want to be doing in terms of the physical domain. But why is that important? It's really important for me, right? To get me centered and in a good place for the day. This is one of those places where I see so many women saying, I don't have time. I've got too many other things to do. They get straight to work, and straight to work, by the way, might be taking care of the kids. And I get it, right? There's a lot that we have to take care of, but it's straight from kids to this next thing that's work. And that whole domain of body gets missed out. We say, I'm going to do it later. And of course, later doesn't happen because all of these other things come into play. And this is, a perfect example of, not choosing hard now. Hard now could be relooking at the calendar. How do I get that in earlier? How can I get a workout in before my kids are awake, right? How can I creatively, frankly, get my partner on board to do some of this heavy lifting so that I can do what I need for myself? That might be that version of hard, right? It's having those conversations. So it's easy later. But the other reason that I want to be doing that at the beginning of the day is that I know that the hard activities in the business also need to happen at the beginning of the day, because that's when my energy is highest. So if I do that physical workout, shift my body, clear my mind, after that, I've got the motivation, right, to do those hard things. And it's so much easier. So I want to give that to you as a test, a tip as well, right? Test yourself. Start to see, where does your own motivation go down for tackling these hard things? Do you notice a time in the day when it'll either take you 2 to 3 times the amount of time to tackle those hard things, or frankly, you will just defer them, push them off because you simply don't have the energy? And go out for that physical workout, move your body. How much easier is it to tackle those hard things earlier in the day? So I want to leave that with you, right? This is, again, secret to success. And frankly, it is what the majority of the population are not doing. As entrepreneurs, we've got to be different. We cannot be expecting to show up as everybody else and getting these phenomenal, extraordinary results that we want for our lives and businesses. We have to do things differently, and reversing that easy now to get hard later, instead doing hard now for easy later, is a huge part of that. Superstars, I love these conversations with you. I'd love to hear what resonates. Please, please, please share this with girlfriends who are in business. Spread the word, leave a positive review, and make sure you're subscribed so that you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes.